Thank you for starting your day with security this morning. This is a practical guide to ArcGIS Online security. My name's Andrea Rosso. I'm lead architect on ArcGIS Online, presenting with...
My name is Jeff Smith. I'm a product engineer for Portal Server with a focus on security.
So today we'll be focusing on security in ArcGIS Online. And ArcGIS Online is ESRI's SaaS offering, software as a service. It allows you as a customer to get a managed virtual portal in the cloud, and allows you as an organization to upload data, manage it, and collaborate with other users and disseminate the information to your organization or the public. We have built it as a multi-tenant system. So when we originally created it, we went out already with the idea that we'd be able to store different data sets from different users, from different organizations together on the same infrastructure. And we've gone through the security hardening and best practices, et cetera, that you might go through using something like ArcGIS Enterprise and doing it yourself on your own infrastructure. But on top of that, we provide various security settings for you to be able to share information as you want it. So this is what the session is about today. It's really about all these different things that you can do on ArcGIS Online in terms of sharing, in terms of integrating your information within apps and so on. So the first topic we'll cover is the portal information model. That gives you sort of foundation for everything else. Is really how the online portal is built and its components and related to security. We'll talk about feature service security in terms of switching on editing and doing something called views to allow people to manipulate features in different ways in your feature services. We'll talk about different ways of authenticating with ArcGIS Online and how you might integrate your own identity system through something called SAML, like your Active Directory, into your own portal on online. We'll also talk about how you can leverage that identity system to then get to have a user log in and use your own application with their own information, and combine that to provide whatever functionality your app might want to provide. And then we'll talk about portal security settings and miscellaneous things that have to do with security that you can switch on and off and control. So the first thing I wanted to start with was the portal information model. So there are four components that we usually talk about. The first one is the portal itself. So the portal is the container in which you work day to day. It has users. So these are the users, your named users that you invite into your portal to do work. These users have what we call items. Items are a generic term that we use for information for data, your maps, your services. And then we have groups. Groups are a way that you can give access to certain items to a group of users. As I talk through this, I just wanted to mention that behind these concepts, there is an API. We are at the Dev Summit. This is a developer conference. So there is a REST API that backs each one of these concepts that you can actually use. It's a REST API very much like Server and other ArcGIS APIs that you might have experience with. The REST API returns JSON objects and properties and so on. There are then, on top of that, built into our web and runtime SDKs, the ability to use all of these concepts in JavaScript, Android, iOS, Java, and so on. So usually it's nicer, of course, to use one of the SDKs. They abstract a lot of the work to do authentication, to put everything together. But fundamentally, underneath the covers, there's a REST API for all of this. So let me start with the portal itself. So the portal is what you activate as a user when you get a trial, when you get a developer subscription, when you purchase a subscription to ArcGIS Online. We sometimes call it your organization, your subscription, or your portal. Kind of use those terms interchangeably here. And when you activate it, you get to pick part of the URL that it lives under. So something.maps.arcgis.com, and you can customize that something to your liking. And when users go to this URL, then you can choose what they see. You can either make your portal private or public. So a public portal will show you the front page. You might want to put the maps you want to disseminate to the public. A private portal will actually just prompt you for a login, and your users have to log into to your particular portal to do their work and to see information. Behind this, there is a REST API that mimics the portal. So each portal has an ID. You can actually, as long as you belong to that portal, you can get information about it. And I just put a little snippet there just to give you some idea. There's many properties to the portal itself. And but if you were to use it, say JavaScript API or something like that, there's objects to basically help you manipulate or interrogate the portal for its properties, which is a much nicer sort of developer experience. Then within the portal, there are items. Items are the information that you upload to your portal that you manage. These can be maps, applications, services. So, portals, the items have a type. So the type, as I said, defines what it is. There's about 40 different types that we support. As I said, all different kinds of services, different types of data like shapefiles, CSVs, even PDFs, and then there's web maps, and then different types of applications. And each item is private by default, has an access property in the API, but we just sort of expose it to you in the UI as shared. It's private by default, so when you upload a new item, it's not going to get shared out automatically to anybody. It's just for you, the owner of that item. And then you can choose to share it out to either a group of users so they can see it, to your organization or your entire portal, or to everyone. And everyone here means everyone. On ArcGIS Online, it's a public, there's a public endpoint, and it means that an anonymous user coming to ArcGIS Online will be able to find this item and look at it, and if it's a file, they'll be able to download it. And even it means that Google will start indexing it and into its search engine, and people will be able to find it. So it's a desirable thing if it's a public data set. Of course, if it's not, then you shouldn't do this. Then there's users. Users are your named users. They represent whoever you want them to represent. It's the users that do the work inside of your portal. Users are the ones that own items and groups. We'll talk about groups a little bit later. They also have this this access property in the API. They're discoverable too. So they can either set themselves to be private. Nobody can see their information. They can set themselves to be visible in the organization, or they can set themselves to be visible to everyone. Again, everyone meaning the anonymous users. Users also have a profile. So you can, as a user, you can add your own thumbnail, you can add your own description, etc. And on the right here, again, here's the API, what the API might look like. There's an endpoint for users. There's various properties that the users has that you can interrogate and look at in JSON. In the JS API, it's much more high level, so you can actually, for a user, just iterate over their items, for instance, rather than trying to figure out how you would do that on the REST API. Each user has a role. So the role determines what the user can do. We have some built-in roles that come standard in ArcGIS Online. Those are the administrator, who's sort of the super user. They can see everything, do everything in the portal, manage users, invite users in. There are publishers. Publishers are users that can actually create services. They can publish information and create feature services, tile services, scene services, etc. And then there are regular users who can't publish, but they can pretty much do everything else. They can create maps, they can create groups, they can share information and collaborate. And we recently added something called the viewer role, which is a read-only role where users can't create anything. They can just look at information. And then you can actually customize these roles and create what are called custom roles. If you go to ArcGIS Online, there's an experience where you can actually pick all these fine-grained privileges, put them together, and create a role, and then assign the role to your user. So that allows you to do things at a much finer grained level. In the API, this looks like an array of privileges. So every user has this array of privileges. These are documented in our REST API documentation. But no matter if it's a built-in role or a custom role, you get that list. And so you as an app developer could modulate your app depending on what the user can and cannot do. Then we have groups. So groups contain items and users. So any user within the group can see that item or can use that item. So if it's a map, for instance, they can access that map and actually bring it up and use it. Groups also have a visibility and access flag on them. They can be, again, private. They can be shared to the organization, or they can be shared to everyone. But the items within that don't inherit that. So it's really just group visibility. So people can find the group, let's say anonymously, but if the items within it are not shared to the public by their owners, they will not be able to see those items. So that gives you the ability to sort of structure things in different ways. You can still have sort of items that only members of the group can see, but not everybody else. The other feature of a group is that the group owner can actually share or bring in items that they can see into their own group. And that gives them the ability to create these curated groups of information, sort of like our Living Atlas or our gallery on ArcGIS Online. Those are groups that someone is curating and putting interesting items and maps into it, and then allowing just everybody else to sort of experience them as a group. It's like these are the things I care about, and these are the things that I'm showing you I care about. Again, there's a group endpoint, so each group has a group ID, and you can go in and actually interrogate that through the REST API. There's a specialized type of group which we call groups with update capabilities, and these allow the members of the group to actually edit or update the items within them. So previously, the groups I just talked about, you can only it's basically a read-only access. Users can only read those items that are shared to them within that group. With groups with update capabilities, you can actually update them. So you can actually collaborate on the map and go and everybody can update things on the map itself. Because of that power, we do restrict them currently. Only admins can create these types of groups. And the items and users within Those groups can only be within that organization. With regular groups, you can actually bring in and collaborate between organizations on online. And you can't toggle that capability on and off. We want to prevent scenarios where someone brings in a whole bunch of items and then all of a sudden switches that on and is able to then go and edit all of them. So those are, and anything in that group, as I said, is updatable and also editable. So if a feature service, for instance, would be editable by anybody in that group. So let me switch gears to feature services themselves and sort of the options you have there, especially around editing. So when you publish a feature service, the appealing part, or the very useful part, is that you can actually allow editing of that feature service and of the features within it. And so you have various knobs and switches and settings that you can enable and disable depending on what you want to do with those feature services. One thing to understand is that even without editing being on a feature service, there are still a certain group of users that can actually edit the feature service. So the owner can always edit their own feature service. They can always edit features within it. Any administrator within your organization can also edit your feature services. And then any members, as I just mentioned, any members of these groups with update capabilities can also edit the feature service. Once you enable editing on the feature service, what that actually means is that anybody who has access to the feature service can edit. That means that if you share it to a group, anybody in that group can edit. If you share it to your organization, it means anybody in your organization can edit. If you share it to the public, it means anyone anonymously can actually edit on ArcGIS Online. So there are a few use cases where you want to do this, but if you do share out your feature service to the public and it's editable, then anything goes, right? So there's a few options that you can set and restrict when you enable editing. You can give people full permission to add, update, and delete features. You can allow them only to add features or only to edit attributes of existing features. So this gives you control. Maybe you want people to submit information like potholes in your city or things like that to the feature service. So you would only allow that the adding of new features. There's a few privileges also that you can tweak in your organization that have to do with editing. So when you create a custom role, there is an edit privilege. That's actually more about switching it off. So if you don't want anybody to be able, or a subset of your users not to be able to edit any feature service that's in your organization, then you can switch that off. And then there's what we call edit with full control, which is about if you've exposed editing and you want someone to be curating data that gets submitted to the feature service. Let's say you have it set to only add new features. Then those kinds of users will actually be able to add, update, and delete all features so that they can actually go in and maybe clean up data and so on. Editor tracking is also available, so you can switch on editor tracking and basically any feature that gets added or changed will have an attribute that tells you who made the change and who added that feature. You can set options on that to say editors can only see their own features if you have editor tracking on, and you can also allow them to edit their own features. Now there's a new option that we introduced recently called hosted feature layers views. So in your traditional on-premises setup, you have access to your database, and how you structure things. You can create database views and other things. On online, you don't have that level of access. So now we allow you to create feature layer views, which are views on top of a existing feature service or feature layer. And those views can then be shared or exposed in different ways. So you can create a view on a feature layer, expose it anonymously or to the public, and not allow editing, while you can have another view that allows a subset of users to edit, while you might have another view that filters out data in a certain way to only allow them to edit or maybe just visualize things in yet another way. So each view can have different settings, can have different sharing levels, can have different editing features, settings, can have different export settings. So you can enable whether a user can export or not the data from a feature service. They can have different filters, so you can put filtering constraints, only see a certain type of feature, different metadata, and different time settings. Those types of views can only be created by the owner of the base feature layer. So only the owner of that layer can then create views on top of that. There is one setting which I'll talk a little bit later on, which is called allow only standard SQL queries in the portal. That is on by default. That really means that we will enforce a certain set of SQL commands when you're actually querying your feature layer. If you switch that off, it allows a much broader set of SQL to possible on your feature layer, and that opens up some ways that someone could get around these views to actually look at the original data. So it's something you want to keep on. There's very, very few use cases where you would switch it off, but just wanted to mention that just to make sure that that setting is on if you're going to be doing views. Now let me get to the next topic, which is how you authenticate with ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS Online has a bunch of different ways that you can create identities in it. One is obviously just an ArcGIS account where you create a username and password, and then your users log in with that username and password. We've recently introduced the ability to do social identities. So you as the organization owner or the portal owner can actually switch on the ability to allow your users to log in using Facebook or Google. So at that point, if someone has a Google identity, they can just use that, log in. We'll do the whole OAuth thing with Google. And then once they've gotten through that, we'll basically allow them to log into to your portal. And then you can integrate with your own enterprise identity system. If you have an Active Directory, if you have LDAP, etc., there are ways to integrate with that, so you can just use users in there. And so let me talk a little bit more about that. Just in terms of how that works, we use something called SAML 2. A lot of identity providers have some sort of way to expose this SAML 2 spec. This is a spec that allows you to trust an identity provider and exchange information so that we know that it authenticated the user, and that user can log into our application, being ArcGIS Online. We have various doc about how you would set this up with various pretty well-used identity providers. And you can set this up so that people who have access to the identity provider can just automatically log into your portal. So it'll just automatically create a user in there if they haven't logged in before. Otherwise, it'll just log them in. Or you can invite them to your portal by sending out email or providing predefined logins and so on. And you can have a mix. You can have ArcGIS Online identities and also enterprise identities and also social identities now all sort of mixed together in your portal. So we wanted to demo now just sort of how that setup works. So Jeff.
All right. Thanks, Andrea. I want to do demonstrate this. So I've got an ArcGIS Online organization here, a sample one I've created. Let me sign in as an administrator. And in order to configure the SAML authentication or the SAML, in order to configure ArcGIS Online to communicate with your SAML identity provider, we need to go to Edit Settings and down here under Security. And it's this Enterprise Logins option that we need to configure. Now I've already configured my SAML. In this case, for this demo, I'm using the Active Directory Federation Services identity provider. It's a very common one if you're a Microsoft organization, in the sense that you've got Active Directory on your infrastructure and that sort of thing. So I will click Set Identity Provider. Give it a name. Now, as Andrea mentioned, you can choose whether or not you want your users to be added automatically or if you want to invite them as an administrator. So in this case, I'll add them automatically. If they're going to be added automatically, I can choose what default license level I want. I can also choose what role they will be by default. So perhaps in this case, I want my users to be publishers by default. I can even go as far as to specify which groups they're going to be assigned to by default. In this case, down here, the metadata for the enterprise identity provider, you can specify a URL if your identity provider is exposed externally, or you can specify a file. I've got a file in this case. So I'll go find that. And then you also have some advanced options here. These options vary. A lot of times you don't need to do much with this, but it depends on the identity provider you're using. In this case, I'm going to select to enable signed requests. I can even choose, okay, we'll sign using the SHA-256 encryption algorithm. I can also choose to propagate logouts to the identity provider. There are a couple other options here. Most of these you shouldn't need to adjust, but some identity providers require an encrypted assertion, and you would check this box right here. Once that's done, set identity provider. And the second step, which I've already done in this case, you need to do the get service provider. This provides an XML-based file that describes your ArcGIS Online configuration. And this needs to be sent to your IT department, or whoever's in charge of the enterprise identity provider it needs to be imported into that so it can trust your ArcGIS Online organization here and be able to allow ArcGIS Online to authenticate against it. In this case, I've already done that. So when I click Save, and I'm logged in as an administrator now, so when I sign out and I click Sign In, I now have the option to sign in using either the ArcGIS account or my enterprise account. Now, the advantage of this, when I click on enterprise account, different identity providers can be configured for different types of authentication. For example, if your users are all internal users and you want to have a single sign-on sort of experience, this could be configured to use IWA. I'm talking about your identity provider, your enterprise identity provider can be configured to authenticate with IWA, it can be configured to authenticate with PKI, it can be configured to authenticate perhaps even a multi-factor authentication. It's all up to you. It doesn't matter what you select. In this case, just to show you in this demonstration here, I'm using a form-based authentication. I can log in, and I'm logged in as my enterprise user now in ArcGIS Online. Okay.
Thank you. So now that we saw how you integrate with the your own IDP, identity provider, let's talk a little bit how you would then now take ArcGIS Online users and then integrate the ability to use their content into your own application. So you do this by using something called OAuth 2. So OAuth 2, they define as a standard for handling authentication decisions among various web-enabled devices and servers. But basically, it's a way for your application to prompt a user to log in. That login goes to ArcGIS Online, we authenticate it, and then we pass back basically a token that you can then use to then use private information from that user in the application. So if you want to be able to leverage the user wants to be able to leverage your application using their private information or their org information, etc., you're able to do that. So here's how it works. So first of all, let's say you have your application already pretty much done. You register that application with ArcGIS Online. You get a client ID or an app ID, we call it sometimes. You then integrate a call to bring up the sign-in dialog from ArcGIS Online and pass in the client ID for your application. The user logs in. That login stays on ArcGIS Online over HTTPS, so your application doesn't see any of that. And then what happens is a token gets generated and the call gets redirected to a redirect URI that you specify when you've registered the app. That token then for a certain amount of time allows you to then use the portal services, all the hosted feature services, hosted say scene services, etc. Using that token on behalf of the user to bring to life the application. Now, once the token here has expired, the user has to log in again. There's a second workflow which is a little bit more, takes a little bit more work to integrate and also forces your application to have to keep a secret, what's called a refresh token. So in the web context, it's a little bit harder to implement, but it works well for native applications, things like mobile devices and desktop applications. Here you register the application, you get your client ID, you sign in. Instead of getting an access token, you get what's called a refresh token. A refresh token is actually valid for a much longer time, and its purpose is for you to keep it on the client side and only use it to get an access token. That refresh token is has a much longer lifespan, and then with it you can get this access token to then use various services available. The access token has a much shorter life. It expires after default 30 minutes. And then the refresh token is used to get a new one and so on. And that allows you to keep the user sort of logged in for a much longer time and still be sort of have that secure transaction going on in the back end. So anyway, Jeff was going to show how you might set this up.
All right. Thanks, Andrea. I'm logged in as my enterprise user right now in the ArcGIS Online organization, and I've already created a web map here. In this case, it's called, it's a pool permits web map, pretty basic, nothing special about it, but I want to use this to demonstrate the OAuth and registering an application and using OAuth to sign in. So what I've done is created a web mapping application, and I've actually downloaded it onto this laptop right here. And so if I access it right now, I get presented with a login window right here. Now, right now, this is not utilizing OAuth to try to authenticate against and sign in to access the web map. This is using just to generate token request. And the only username and password I can enter here is an ArcGIS account. Username and password. I cannot enter an enterprise user. So in order to do that, I need to register the application with ArcGIS Online. So let's close this and go back here. Now the web map, if I click on the web map, I have a map ID up at the top in the URL. This is needed here. And let me close this. And I've got the application installed on this laptop under inetpub www.root viewer. And in the config folder, there's a default.js. Now, the application I downloaded is one of the basic maps. If you download one of the template maps, these options are available in any of the applications that you can download and host on your own machine. Open this up, and in fact, I've already updated it. The web map ID right here is what I put in there, and that's how it knows which web map to use. But what I need to do now is register the app. So let's log out of this user and log back in as an administrator. And I'm going to go under My Content, and I'm going to create an app. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to add an application. It's a web mapping application, JavaScript. It's just something I've downloaded. The URL is the URL for my application, which is this right here. I can give it a title, give it a tag, and add item. So I've registered it. Now I need to go under settings here, or I've added it right now. And now I need to do, the app registration is here under settings. And this is the part that's critical. I click register. App type is, you've got some different options here. We'll leave it at browser. The redirect URI, we just need this part right here. And then we add this. And we click register. What this creates for us, this registers the application and creates an app ID. This app ID needs to be copied into that config.js file. So it knows, it uses the app ID to submit or to make this OAuth registry or the OAuth request. So we'll copy that, go back to our default.js, paste it here. Now, in some cases, yeah, we could leave it at this, and if I go into the, get the URL again. Let me clear, refresh. And we got a new option here. Please sign in to continue. And this takes us to a new window. Now we'll go ahead, I'm signed in already. But this is the window that we get here. Now you've got an option to sign in with a built-in username and password, or you can choose an enterprise account. Now in some cases, most of the time you want to bypass this, because if I click on enterprise and I have to type in my org name right here, and then I get redirected to this. But let's go back to the configuration file. And right here under sharing host, we need to specify my org name as securitydemo.maps.arcgis.com. So now that we've done this, we go back, refresh the viewer app. Please sign in to continue. And we get redirected. Again, I needed to sign out, but I get redirected to my OAuth or the login screen for my ArcGIS Online enterprise account. Now I can log in with an enterprise user and complete the authentication process using my SAML identity provider to access the application and everything, and we're in good shape here. I'm signed in, authenticated, registered the app, and we're good to go. Okay.
Cool. Thanks. So when we When we talk about sort of the ArcGIS Online and security, we usually talk about a certain set of apps and systems in ArcGIS Online, and we sort of create this boundary around these systems, and that's and we manage and trust these systems in a certain way. When you go outside this boundary, we warn you, or we give you some settings to allow you to control that. So when you create a third-party application and integrate the OAuth sign-in dialog, we actually ask the users a question of whether you allow this application to use your credentials. Because when you log into this third-party application, once the user has logged in, that application can work on behalf of the user and can see their private information. So there's this dialog that comes up that the user has to click through. This also applies to other non-ArcGIS Online apps, but Esri apps like GeoNet and MyEsri and training and support, etc. Those are outside of the boundary that we have. They're not necessarily more or less secure. It's just that in terms of compliance and documentation, etc., they are not. They are different, and so we have the administrators of a organization. They have to set an Esri access flag on for all the users that they want to be able to go and log into these other systems. Now let's talk about just other settings to do with security in your portal. There's various things when you go and edit settings as an administrator that you see and can switch on and off. One of them is whether you want to use HTTPS only for all of your organization. So for all your users who log into the portal, they are, whether you want them to go over HTTPS or not. We have that on by default, so HTTPS is the default. HTTPS means that the communication between the client and our servers is encrypted. There are use cases where you might want to switch this off. If you are interacting with non-HTTPS servers out there, there are many out there still. You might have services coming from third parties or WMS, WFS services and other things that you want to integrate into your map. Browsers nowadays, they're starting to block, sometimes they warn, but basically you don't get a very good experience if your map contains sort of a mix of layers and you're looking at the map over HTTPS in your browser. So that would be the use case where you would need to switch it off. It's an org-wide thing, and if it's off, users still have the option to go HTTPS. It's just that they also can go over HTTP if they want to. When you switch on HTTPS, or when it's on, then we will actually reject any HTTP communication to the portal. You can allow or disallow anonymous access. I talked about this at the beginning, whether your portal is public or private. You can switch off standardized queries. I talked about this a little bit before. It's on by default, so that means we will enforce a certain set of SQL whenever you're talking to feature services and running queries against your feature services. If you switch that off, then a much larger set of SQL can be applied, but that also opens you up to people being able to get around some of the other security settings that you might have on your feature services. You can disable user profiles. This is more of a compliance setting. In certain cases, some organizations don't want their users to put PII or personally identifiable information in their profile, so they wanted the option to switch that off so people can't enter that. And then you can also switch off whether users of your portal can actually share to everyone or to the public. So that way you can control whether they ever do that. Only at that point, when that is off, you can only the administrators of the organization are the ones that could actually share out to everyone, and so they can control the information that gets disseminated. There's two more controls we'll demo next, which are trusted servers and allow portal access. So you can put in a list of trusted servers, and this has to do with CORS requests, cross-origin resource sharing requests. We will actually send information or assume CORS is enabled on those trusted servers and send your information to those servers that you trust, and that gives you a better experience when going between online and your own servers. And then there's this allow portal access setting where it gives you a much better experience if you tell us, I have a portal, I'm using my on-premises ArcGIS Enterprise portal, and I want to integrate it with online, and so that allows you to have a better experience if you're using enterprise logins to send those credentials between the two. So Jeff will talk a little bit more about this.
Okay.
I don't know if you...
Yeah, I'll pull up this slide on my end here.
Okay.
For the trusted servers, I want to demonstrate this, but I just want to talk through it briefly, what's going on. As Andrea mentioned, this comes into play when making a CORS request. In particular, when you're accessing a secured service or a service that's secured with web tier authentication is where this is critical. And that could be like from an ArcGIS server service, or in a lot of cases, an OGC service, a secured WMS, WFS, etc. The client web browser is the one that's accessing the web map in ArcGIS Online, and then the web map tells the browser, okay, you need to access this secured service, either on ArcGIS server or an OGC service. The service is secured with web tier authentication, so it cannot utilize a proxy to access it, because the credentials aren't going to be passed through a proxy. So it needs to make a CORS request. By default, we do not send a user's credentials through the CORS request. We have to explicitly list, the trusted servers is the list of servers where we say, okay, these servers we trust, we will send the credentials through. And so what we see here, like I've got demonstrated, the proxy won't work because the credentials aren't passed through, but the CORS request with the credentials will work to access it. So I want to demonstrate that right here. I've got in this case, it's a secured feature service from ArcGIS Online, secured with web tier authentication. So I'm logged into my organization right now. Actually, let me go into a map and add the service first so you can see what it looks like without. Since this is an ArcGIS Online service, when I add it to the map, it's a feature service that's secured, and I get asked to put in credentials to access it, which is fine. The service will come through, but editing will be disabled. And this is because the CORS request is not sending the credentials over. And so from the maps perspective here, you can view the item or the service, you can query the service, but you just won't be able to edit it. So if I go back to my organization, under Edit Settings, Security, Trusted Servers. And what I want to do is add the host name where that feature service resides. Click Add Server, go down here and save. Now, if I go back, in this case the map is still there. The service is still in the map, but you'll notice the editing button is enabled. Just with that change that I made, it's sending my credentials are being sent through the CORS request, so editing is enabled. This comes up a whole lot with OGC services, secured OGC services, if you're trying to add those to a web map application and want the credentials to be passed. For OGC service, you won't even be able to see the service because we rely heavily on the CORS request in order to even view or query the service. So now for the, let's go back here. The allow portal access is a feature that it comes into play in particular with ArcGIS Online. If you've got secured services on your ArcGIS Online organization and you're trying to access them through a web map hosted on another, either perhaps on a portal that's in the cloud or a portal on premises. What this does is allows you to, similar to the demonstration I did previously, it submits an OAuth request between the ArcGIS Online organization and your on-premises portal or your portal in the cloud. So if I go here, let me go out to actually create a new map here. And I've got a feature service. Let me open up this is an on-premises portal that I've got in the cloud. And I'm going to create a new map and I'm going to try to access a secured service from my ArcGIS Online organization here. Modify. And so we're going to get in this case, this looks very similar to just the login window for generating a token, where it only supports a built-in username and password or an ArcGIS Online account. In order to support the enterprise account, I need to go back into here, into my ArcGIS Online, under my organization, edit settings, security, and the allow portal access. And what I'm telling my ArcGIS Online organization by adding this is that I want to allow OAuth requests to be made or to be authenticated on this portal, this additional portal here. So I put in the URL for the portal. This is only available, this only works for 10.5 and higher down the road. This does not work for a portal 10.4.1 or earlier. So go up and save this. And now if I create a new map here, modify, add the layer, let's get the URL again. And now what I'm presented with, you get please sign in to continue, and I get a pop-up window, and actually it logged me in automatically. Well, I was hoping I forgot to log out first, but that actually showed my ArcGIS Online login window where I could select to choose to log in with an enterprise account or the ArcGIS Online account. And then I've got access to the service this way.
Okay, great. Let me quickly finish the last few slides. We're starting to run low on time, and then we can take some questions. Quickly, I just wanted to mention the administrator controls on a user. So if you're an administrator of your portal or subscription, you have you have basically super user access to your users. You can manage their items or groups or profile. You can disable them. You can delete them. You can reset their password. You can change their roles, and you can also enable Esri access. So your administrators are basically like your root user or your administrator user on your OS. They can basically do everything. A few other security-related things. If you're not using your own enterprise identity provider, you can switch on certain things like multi-factor authentication on your ArcGIS account. This allows you to increase the security of your ArcGIS of your users in your portal. Multi-factor authentication means you have a second factor, which is your smartphone in this case. which gives you a rotating number every 30 seconds that you use in addition to your password to log in into your portal. And we support Google Authenticator to set this up, or Microsoft Authenticator, and then the administrator switches it on, and then the user actually sort of enables their device with a special workflow where they scan a barcode and set it all up so that they can then do this. You can also set some password policies on your users, again, if they're ArcGIS logins. The default password policy that we have for ArcGIS Online is 8 characters with at least one number, but you can make it more, you can make it stronger, you can add complexity, you can add length. You can also have history requirements. Users can't reuse the same password up to a certain number of times, and you can actually have an expiration, so every 90 days, for instance, you could force them to change their password. You can also keep track of usage, so that's important if you want to try to keep an eye on things. There is a status dashboard, we call it, which gives you reports on content that is public, or who owns what, and how much space they're using, and how many members you have, and how many items and services, and so on. So it's a good place to go to figure out what's going on. And then I'll conclude with some compliance information. ArcGIS Online is actually built on world-class cloud infrastructure providers of Microsoft Azure and Amazon Web Services. They are SOC certified, ISO 27001 certified, and FedRAMP, which is a US government sort of accreditation level. And in terms of our own compliance on top of that, we have just recently in February gone through the self-assessment for Privacy Shield, which is the replacement of Safe Harbor for the European Union. We are FISMA accredited, which is, again, this is something with the US government, and we are working this year to go to FedRAMP, which is a slightly different and slightly more modern sort of accreditation system than FISMA. If your security team needs information about security and you know, documentation, etc., you should have them go to trust.arcgis.com. That has a lot of documents, not only for online, but for all ArcGIS products. For online, we have something called the Cloud Security Alliance Questionnaire, which is about 40 pages, I believe, of various question answers to do with security, which we've filled out and published, so your security team can take that and look at it. And that concludes our presentation. Please fill out the survey. Hopefully it's simpler this year. Sorry we got so close to the end here, but we have a few minutes, so we can take any questions. Right, so the question is, if you're transferring from ArcGIS logins, named users, to your enterprise identity users, is there an easy way to do that? There are tools out there to do that. There is no sort of automatic way of doing it. You can transfer information from one user to another in ArcGIS Online, so you can say, I want to transfer all these maps, etc. So you can do that, but there isn't really a way to, because we don't know the mapping, unfortunately. There really hasn't been a way for us to do it automatically underneath the covers for you. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, going back to the feature layer view capability, we use a ton of reference feature layers. Is it the same capability as using hosted feature layers that you showed earlier?
So, wait, not sure I understood the question, but
So we use a lot of reference feature layers as opposed to most feature layers.
okay.
The new capability of the
Oh, right.
you utilize the feature layer views.
Okay,
Are they the
right.
same capabilities or are there any gotchas?
Yeah, so yeah, you're a user of, you refer to feature services that you host yourself, and so the question is whether whether you can use the views on top of that, or no. Right now, that's a hosted services only feature because we have knowledge, between the view and the base layer, we have knowledge of the view and the relationship, etc. So we can block its access and do different things. So right now you can't build a view on top of your own.
Reference.
Right.
Okay.
With web tier security and editor tracking, does the user need to exist in, let's say you're editing a feature service that comes from an SSD database. Does that user need to exist in the SSD database? How does that work for editor?
So for editor tracking, does the user need to exist in your database? So, well, if you're talking about editor tracking as a hosted feature service, no. I mean, we know who the user is who's editing the feature, and as long as they have access to that feature service, we'll basically track their username. And put it in there, but they don't actually have to necessarily exist somehow in the feature service itself. It's a little bit different than when you would do it on premise with SDE and other things. I think we're out of time. I don't know if we have to get off stage or maybe not, but let's conclude it and then we'll be around. We're around all day, so we can.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.